This episode of The Rock Block is brought to you by Exit In, Nashville's premier independent music venue for the last 50 years and counting, and TechWorks, a Nashville-based event production company providing full-service decorative lighting, stage lighting, professional sound, and audio-visual production support for all types of events, big and small.
There are those who say rock and roll is there to make you feel good. Bollocks. It's there to help you wrench a toilet bowl out of the floor and aim it at a dense, livid throng of miscreants, gutter punks, and unwashed rock and roll imbeciles. That's when music is best. When it thins the herd and separates the men from the boys and the girls from their values. Such rock and roll was made in Nashville, back when giants walked the earth. Ching-chinging their spur-laden cowboy boots across the rock block. And no giants walked taller and with more jovial malevolence than Jason and the Nashville Scorchers.
So what was the difference in recording the first EP and then going and doing Fervor? Like the recording part, did you have this, I assume you had the songs, but did you take any different, is there any different directions, or was it just, let's put a few more mics up and do the exact same thing we've been doing?
Good question. Really excellent question. No one's ever asked. Reckless Country Soul was recorded with Jack Emerson producing it. It was all his baby. And it was his sort of vision. And, you know, of course, we picked the songs and worked up the songs, but he put that together and made it all happen. Fervor, he was still involved, of course, and, you know, everything we did, Jack was the fifth member. But by that point, Warner was taking a much bigger role, and Jeff as well. And they really drove the process of recording. I mean, Jack would find the money to get us into studios, the number one being Sun Studios in Memphis, and the second one, the Castle here. So Jack found the money, or begged and borrowed and steal to do it. But Warner and Jeff really were thinking about how to produce these songs and what songs and how to make them, how to cut them in the studio. Right off the bat, right at that point, they were really producing the band. And that was a big difference. They had such great instincts, and they're such great musicians that they knew their way around the studio. They'd already been in the studio quite often, a lot already before the Scorchers. So Fervor, you know, Hot Nights in Georgia it was Warner Hodges' production and Jeff. You know, they did that. And they did a hell of a job. You know, hell of a job.
How did Michael Stipe end up on
I think they were just in town. We just had him come in and sing. There's an interesting side story to that. He sang on the first version of Fervor. When we remixed it, I think they accidentally erased his vocal. We still credited him.
Of course.
The EMI version, the Capitol version, that you'll hear today on Spotify. I don't think Michael's actually on there.
So was your idea to put the Dylan song on there?
It was.
Did the record label want more, like when I guess it got released a couple of times,
Yeah.
3 times, at least twice.
Right.
So they wanted an extra song for the big time release?
Exactly. And it's amazing how things it happens so fast. You know, we had gotten nowhere in terms of getting a record contract, not even close. Had never had a single A&R person that ever saw us that wanted to sign us. Nobody. 81, 82, and 83. We made that tour of California in 83, December. Somehow got to Los Angeles and had just this killer experience at the Palomino Club and a few other rooms, which I don't remember. Created this hell of a buzz. You know, had a good demo tape at that point, had the LP out, the EP out, but also had some new songs, some demo tapes and stuff. And man, had a heck of a buzz. I mean, after the Palomino Club, we had 5 offers the next week. I mean, I'm not talking little independent labels. I mean, A&M and CBS and Warner Brothers and Capitol, EMI. So they signed us, committed to sign us, did a letter of intent, Capitol did, and immediately said, okay, we're going to re-release this record in January. And now I was like, you crazy, you can't do all that stuff by January? I mean, that's what I would say as an old man. But those, oh, sure, yeah, we'll get that done. Yeah, we can do this. And so we went in immediately, and we recut Pray For Me Mama, I'm a Gypsy Now with Terry Manning. We recorded Absolutely Sweet Marie, remixed the rest of Fervor, might have even done something else different on Fervor, did a video for it, revised the artwork, and had that record out in January. You know, the single was out, the video is being played on MTV. That's less than 4 weeks, you know, that we made that all happen.
That's crazy.
We were in Europe by March, and that's how fast it happened. But to answer your question, yeah, Absolutely Sweet Marie was a song we'd been playing. We had demoed it, and it was my idea completely. I don't even think they knew it was a Dylan song.
They didn't.
You know, for quite a long time. I loved that version, that side of Blonde on Blonde.
Right.
And I would listen to it in my little shack there in West Nashville. You know, I lived in this, you know, flat out dirt poor working class West Nashville neighborhood. And I would listen to Blonde on Blonde, and then the Scorchers would come and rehearse and work up songs. And it was like, I just walked out of my bedroom, you know, listening to Blonde on Blonde, Absolutely Sweet Marie, and then I just sat there and just played it on my guitar, on my acoustic, and they just kicked right in. They'd never heard the song and didn't know it was Dylan. And as I played the song, they started playing along with me. And I kind of moved over to the mic, started singing into the mic. And all those sort of weird, cool little licks and that weird arrangement, which happened a lot in those days, happened spontaneously as I was singing the song. It wasn't like, hey guys, stop. Hey, you should do something over here in this section. It was like we would be doing it, and intuitively those guys would all join in. Sweet Marie was like that. Lost Highway is another example. I came in with my acoustic guitar, and I'd been listening to the Hank version of it, which was in E, and it was, I'm a rolling stone, all alone and lost. And I took it to A, and I walked in with my acoustic guitar, and I just started like, I'm a rolling stone, but I was still strumming.
Right.
Jeff immediately hit eights on it. He started playing eighth notes in A, and then Perry hit, you know, 4/4 really hard, really, really heavy. And Warner started not playing boogie rhythms. He was doing that weird off rhythm, open chordal stuff. So, okay, that's easy enough to do. Then, obviously, I would take a harp solo. I played a harp solo after the second verse and notched up the energy, but we were still doing, you know, straight eights and a punk rock rhythm to the guitars and the drums. And then, without even stopping the song and even thinking about it, talking about it, Warner sort of nodded at Jeff, and he sort of looked over him and said, made this like a downward sort of motion with his head. Instead of, we were going to modulate, obviously after that part, you know, the country thing would be to modulate to B, you know, to go up. But Warner gave that, go down, Jeff. And right on the spot without stopping, they both went into F sharp major. Not an F sharp minor, but an F sharp major. F sharp minor was related. F sharp major was satanic. You know, the devil was sending us to hell for the lifestyle we were living right there on the spot. And, you know, they went into F sharp, and Warner would do that thing. And, you know, me and Perry just let it go for a while. And, you know, then I started singing, and Perry knew the song. He knew enough of it, he started doing a harmony with it, sort of an Everly Brothers double lead harmony, you know. And then once again, we ended the song without talking about it. We right on the spot, Jeff and Perry and Warner just instinctively went to a 1-7-4-5 ending as opposed to a 1-5-1 repeat 1-5-1. All instinctively, without talking about it. I was too young to know how extraordinary that was. Now, as an old musician, an experienced musician, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that again. A bunch of 20-year-olds, you know. Perry was, I don't know, 17 or something, you know. Amazing. Warner and Jeff and Perry were fantastic musicians. I was a sort of frontman personality, but they were great musicians, brilliant musicians, not just attitude, not just energy. They were great are great musicians. God, what a band. It wasn't an act. They were rock and rollers. They were, possessed with demons. They were rock and roll in every sense of the word, all three of them.
How did you bridge that gap? I mean,
Yeah.
you guys, they were all kind of friends, grew up together. You come in out of nowhere and you're stuck in a van with these three maniacs.
Right.
Like, how did, Jeff wrote it up to patience and maybe a focus, but how did you...
How do you juggle that? How do you balance?
Without going crazy? Or maybe you did go a little bit crazy. I don't know, but what...
Well, I certainly realized that someone had to keep their head on straight. One person had to do it. And it just, fate befell that to me, to be that person. In those days, like back in Carbondale, I'd have a beer or two and go on stage and, I had my share of fun things that college young men do. But when the Scorchers started touring, I realized, okay, I've got to keep it together, because the first night in Beaumont, three of them were in prison.
Yeah, nobody's got to bail me out, right?
I don't think we were ever as bad as the Replacements were. But we were pretty...
Well, that leaves a whole lot of bad underneath, because
there's
that's
a lot
pretty
of
much
bad.
the pinnacle of
Yeah,
bad.
there's a bad. But those were the times when it could have easily.
Going back to what you were talking about, you and Andy at least were smart enough to know, like, we were talking about the half-step things that you guys were doing as a unit. The special bands they end up like that. You know what I mean? There's plenty of singers with the guitar player, bass player, a backing band, whatever, but the really special bands do exactly what you're talking about, where it's that, and everybody knows what to do from that, or that's, it's from playing together a lot, but it's also something about the chemistry. And to me, it seems a very rare occurrence when you land on something like that. And a lot of times it doesn't last very long, but it's kind of mind-bending to think about. And like you said, you get to be an older musician. When you're 22 or whatever, it's just like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what Kiss does, And we all sound great. This is how it goes. And then you start playing with other people, or members change in a band or whatever. You're like, oh, there's something to that chemistry thing. Even though maybe, this bass player or this guitar player is better than the last one, there was something about that last one that made this particular unit go, And
Yeah, that's the truth. And we saw it on our own. We didn't need an audience to see it.
Right.
We saw it in West Nashville in that little shack. And, we knew it. We knew it. And those times, I think, kept us all in it. We through the hard times and through the incredible chemistry that was Jason and the Nashville Scorchers in the early 80s, mid-80s.
So we're going to jump around a little bit here, but the Cats record store shows, turns out there's shows. I only was aware of one. The fellas were talking about two of them. Big question, you're talking about those guys and what they were thinking, dealing with their things and stuff. I want to know, what were you thinking when you decided to try to climb the pole? So what's going on there at that moment?
Well, that was a preordained, pre-thought sort of something I was going to do for effect. I did it both times, both shows I did it. The first show was the show I knocked out my tooth. And I climbed that billboard then and hung an American flag.
I saw that one.
That's the one where we opened for the White Animals, I think. The White Animals actually headlined that show, I think. The second one, then, that was after Lost and Found. Oh, geez, it was
Right.
Wow. It was a whole different thing. That's the one that they shut down West End, and that's the one I remember. I think for the White Animals one, I think the flag fell or something. It didn't work. My mic. What happened was I got up on top and my mic didn't work. That's what it was. I climbed the billboard, and it was just a high billboard, and I'm deathly afraid of heights. But, the mic didn't work, the flag fell.
You're just up there like, hey.
Hi, everybody. Boy, what a plan I had. This really worked out. So then I, had to climb back down, sort of feeling really stupid and foolish. The second time, though, wow, I climbed it. We had this long mic cord. We got rid of that sort of idiot cordless thing by that point. We said, no, Jack actually said, you use a mic cord, because when you use a mic cord, it electrifies the whole place, because people are tripping on it and they're ripping around, and you go out in the crowd and people are helping with the mic cord. You got to do the mic cord. So we got rid of that idiot transwave, cordless mic. I had a flag. I knew how to hang it. This is 1985. We're an American rock and roll band. We're leading that charge. We're sort of anti-British synth music. We are an American rock and roll band, and damn proud of it. So I climbed this billboard, I hung that flag, and everybody starts screaming. Joyous yelling, and everyone was like totally into it. And then I sang the rest of, I think it was White Lies. I sang White Lies from the top, with the mic going down.
Sea of people.
God, it was so cool. I mean, I literally, all I could see was people, all the way up West End, thousands and thousands of folks at it was the culmination of the whole Scorchers 80s run, even though it was 85. That was the height. That was at that moment when that flag dropped down. And I started singing, every evening when I walk through the door, and Perry joining in, and everybody starts singing in the audience.
After the breakdown,
Damn,
and the big kick in, and the last.
That was it. That's when it worked. So there was actually two of them. And people get mixed up, I saw the 83 one. Well, dude, there was only 75 people, and you're the 78th person that's told me
so
this.
I was telling the other two, I was like, I know 20,000 people that said it was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. Like, maybe 1,500? Yeah. But so after Fervor, you guys made it to England and kind of blew up there, right? I mean, they tended to get it. They like hillbilly stuff in England. They like all the good shit from America, the blues, the super country, they get the good stuff.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you can never use the word blew up with Jason and the Scorchers. We were never a commercial success anywhere on the entire planet Earth. Right. You compare us to Huey Lewis and the News, and there's no comparison commercially. So we never had commercial success, even in Europe. It's a myth that the Scorchers were huge in Europe. People still say that about us. But we did more business there. And we still can do more business in Europe, Northern Europe, and the British Isles than we can here. So it is a bit of a myth. But, I mean, Fervor, our first tour of Europe, of the UK, we went to the UK first. Yeah, we were on the cover of Sound's Enemy and Melody Maker, on the cover, all three of them the same week. So it did happen for us. They're bigger than it was here. But I'll never say that we had better fans there than we have here. Our American audience is just as fervent and has stayed with us, all these years, as much as European audiences have. But I think we can tour better there, because touring bands do better in Europe. There's more support for touring music, no matter what the genre is,
right,
than there is here. There's more government support. Yeah, I mean, in the Netherlands, the government owns the clubs. The club doesn't have to make money.
Right. Right.
It's not a profit-driven thing. So, you have all these clubs, these great clubs. So there is more support for live music in Europe. And we've had some killer experiences that you just can't really put a quantitative number on what that does to your spirit, to play to an audience of people who don't speak your language, and they still get it. There's still a connection. It's an amazing experience. It's a wonderful thing. It really is. You can't, it's worth all the bad stuff that may have happened over these years to be able to do things like that.
Well, there has to be those moments in playing music during the show, because all the other 23 hours surrounding it, most times are horrible, and there's a reason we all keep doing it.
It's that hour and a half.
Yep.
Or it's 2 hours, whatever it may be, of the performance that makes it all worth its while, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's a whole bit about getting paid for the 23 other hours where you're not doing it. That you play
Right.
for free.
It really is a crazy lifestyle to be quiet and just sort of, to do all the stuff it takes to get to the show and to do the show and put up with everything, and then to do this show where, for that hour and a half, you're on stage in front of people, cheering for you, not once, but every song, if you're going over well, your dad, my dad, our fathers, our mothers, they may have worked all their lives and not had anybody say great job.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We get it, 26 times a night. It's or online, where you go on and read what people say about you. It's this very strange existence.
I've never thought about that.
It's a very odd.
Abject boredom to,
Right.
nirvana, and then back to boredom.
And then back to boredom.
Yeah.
In a van,
In a van.
in a van. That's it.
So back to recording. What was the difference between doing Fervor and then going into the next one, Lost and Found? Like,
Great.
Yeah.
You guys this is excellent. I'm really enjoying this, fellas. Now we had a budget, a real budget.
You
Fervor
got
was done,
eyeballs on
looking
you.
cr-
You got buzz. It's
Yeah.
time to.
Buzz, money, expectations, great songs. We knew we had great songs. Chibanelli, we had been playing Broken Whiskey Glass and White Lies, and If Money Talks, So We Should Speak to Me, and Shop It Around, Still Tied. We've been playing those songs live with no exposure, and people were like, whoa, So we were on fire. We just knew it. There was no problems then. No personal issues in the band, no substance abuse problems in the band. Everybody came to the party, no arguing. We knew what we wanted to do, absolutely unified. There was no issues whatsoever within the band at that point. Had everything going in our favor. Had Terry Manning, front to back, fantastic engineer. Our choice of studios, anything we wanted to do, they were going to pay for. So we chose to record in Nashville. We did it at Emerald. And the sessions just went marvelous. It was really just a 2-month process. You're going to go in and record. You're not playing live, fellas. You're going to record this record. This is big time. This is it. So, and we did it. And we got to be rock stars for 2 months. We just went in there and recorded this great record. We knew it was a brilliant record. We knew it. There was no question about it. While we were cutting it, Chibanelli, singing the vocal to I Really Don't Want to Know, and listening to Perry nail those harmonies on White Lies. It was just, hearing for the first time the rough mix of Warner playing that outro on Last Time Around. It was like, wow, no one's ever played guitar like that. It's never been done. It's on my song, It was just hearing it for the first time as we were doing these things was, once in a lifetime. Never, ever forget that.
And it sounds like for that particular record, there was no battles with the label, no battles with the engineer or producers. Like everybody's on board.
Yeah,
That's
everybody was on board.
That's a rarity in itself.
EMI was absolutely behind what we were doing.
Your
They
A&R
said,
guy was smart enough to know these guys know these songs, let them do their thing. Whoever that was, kudos to him or her.
yeah, his name was Steve Rybowski, and he became a big, big hitter. I think he signed, a lot of stuff.
Right.
Ended up everywhere. But he signed us, and he said, no, make Jason and the Scorchers music. Don't worry about nothing. Don't worry about getting on the radio. We'll take care of that. You just make a great Jason and the Scorchers record.
You had been playing those songs. Did the arrangements change at all or anything? And if so, how did you decide to put the piano or other instruments that aren't normally in the live set? How did that all happen?
Yeah, that was an interesting question, Frank. Because, Broken Whiskey Glass was a completely different animal live than it is on Lost and Found. And it took some discussions on that. I wouldn't say arguments. We didn't have arguments, but we did discuss that. Like, okay, this isn't going to be featuring Warner Hodges. This is going to
Right.
be, the arrangement of that features Earl Poole Ball's piano, really.
Yeah.
The musical arrangement of that. And, to Warner's credit, God bless him, he stepped back and let that happen, So there was a lot of discussion about that. Do we take a piano player out live? And we decided not to do that sort of route. So that was a tricky part. A lot of the songs, though, we were able to do live the way we'd done them live. Still Tide, for example, one of my favorite songs on that record, and from that time. Warner had actually played Lap Steel live. He'd been carrying a Lap Steel live, and he had played that great solo, live with me on acoustic and that great bass line Jeff did. But other ones, wow, Last Time Around was like a different animal.
Smokes.
Gosh.
Because
Because I don't think we had been doing the ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. I think that was a Warner Hodges studio creation.
Huh.
That riff. I
Right.
think we had just been doing the power chord thing live. And people hadn't, they didn't really react to that one live.
Really?
So Last Time Around was definitely one of those, it even shocked me how different it was and how good it was, how much
great.
better it
The
was.
track is awesome.
The track is incredible.
Is
on that.
Change the Tune is on that record too,
Yeah,
isn't
Change
it?
the Tune closes the
Because
record.
that has all the mandolin
Yeah,
type stuff.
right. Yeah, the mandolin was my idea. God bless Warner, he did it. I don't think he liked doing it, but he did it, and
Well, it's rocking.
He added a good part to it. Yeah.
Well, that's what's
Absolutely.
cool about the band, at least up to this point, is in the studio, it seems like nobody was trying to one up or get themselves
Right.
out there, to where as a live thing, not that you were trying to outdo each other, but nobody was standing in the shadows.
Right.
Everybody was getting theirs live. You know what I
Right.
mean? Even Perry
Yeah.
standing up in the back. So it's cool to get in. It's like, all right, we're not playing in front of people now.
All right.
What's right for the song or whatever? And at least up to that point, it doesn't sound like there were any issues like, man, my guitar's not loud enough, or turn the bass up, or any of that kind of thing. Like everybody sort of was on the same page as how things should sound and go and look and all of that.
Yeah, you hit that, Jonathan. That's it. That's how it was. It was a team record. I think the most team record we ever did. And the results are the results. It is the finest Scorchers record, we ever did, hands down. And I think part of that is because we were a team. It was an absolute team on that record. And it's a record I'll never forget it. If I listen to it now, I have to be in a mindset to just sit down and just be shocked. To this day, it shocks me how good it is.
It's great.
It's a great record. And as I said, to hear it, because I'm the bystander usually, I do my vocal thing, and I hope to get a vibe and a magic to the vocal. But outside of that, I'm not the music guy, in the band. So I would hear these mixes, just like, oh my gosh, we're making a classic record here, And I would tell the guys, and I tell Jack Emerson, I said, we're making something that, it is exactly every bit as good as I thought we were going to do, and even better. To hear those songs as a music fan and as a member of Jason and the Scorchers, and know what went into it and how easily it could have not been that way, because I'd seen the Scorchers fail quite a bit up to that point. I'd seen the arguments and the problems, cause problems. But Lost and Found, none of that was there. And wow, I'll just never forget Far Behind, Once again, Warner stayed out. He was there, but he didn't even play on the record, on that track. And, to be there when Kenny Love was from Jerry Lee Lewis's band and Earl Poole Ball, and, it was just a fantastic experience to watch those great musicians and Jeff playing that riff, and to watch them do that. Also at that session with Far Behind, I just thought of this, James Burton was there.
No kidding.
James Burton was there watching.
Wow.
So
Well,
having a glass of wine.
There was magic in and around that session,
Right.
wasn't there? Yeah.
So anyway, after Lost and Found, then everything started to change.
Did the burnout finally hit a little bit? And like, man, we've been doing this nonstop for a very long time.
Well, Jason and the Scorchers, the four of us were tough dudes, and we could handle the stress and the pressure. None of us were wallflowers. But, yeah, I mean, the expectations that didn't quite get fulfilled started to take their toll. And the pressure then became, if you guys don't have a hit record, you're done.
Right.
It was told to us. And the people who told it to us were right. If we were going to maintain a real recording career with major labels and touring the world constantly and to be able to compete on an international level, we had to have hit songs. Because we didn't with Lost and Found. As good as that record was, there was no hits. So the pressure was to have hits.
Which I guess bleeds into record number 3.
That bleeds into Still Standing.
Right. So were the directives down? Because you can almost tell, if nothing else, lyrically, which is another thing that it's cool about the songs you guys did all throughout, but especially the first couple of records, the EPs, the lyrics you were writing, and we talked about this with Warner and Jeff. It wasn't a typical, about the man, or you're mad at your parents, or you're angry at this. There were no fucks and shits and any of that in there for shock value, and there were like landscape paintings almost sometimes. And Jeff said a lot of it was prophetic, So I guess that comes from maybe your Dylan and Neil Young upbringing and sort of bringing that aspect of your fandom into your art and what you were influenced by early, I guess. Or maybe you don't know why. Maybe that's just what came out. But it seems like the lyrics were on a much deeper level than a lot of the punk rock stuff that was going on.
Well, thank you. It was something that we always were aware of. We didn't ever know how to deal with it. And I knew the songs I was writing weren't for everybody.
Right.
I knew it just was so different than everything else that was being written at the time. Thank God we had Perry, because he could write a catchy pop song that knocked your socks off, But I couldn't do that. I wasn't capable of doing that. So it was always an issue, and something that I always struggled with. Around Still Standing, I started to do the co-writing thing, the write with Music Row guys.
That's what I was about to say.
Los Angeles co-writers and things of that nature.
It seemed to be a little more general lyrics out to the mainstream instead of sort of your experiences or whatever. Right.
That was, and the best songs on the record were songs that I didn't do that on. Golden Ball and Chain is very autobiographical. It's about being a farm boy, lost in the rock and roll excess,
Why
trap.
was that not the first single? Whose idea was it to put out a cover? I know it wasn't your guys. It couldn't have been.
Yeah, it was a big mistake. Yeah.
It's just, I remember that 19th Nervous Breakdown came out, and I was like, well, it's fine.
Okay, yeah.
It's a cool
but
song.
There's a bunch of other songs on this Golden Ball and Chain song. So I was like, to me, why are you starting with that? And again, I know that wasn't you guys going, I think we should put the Stones cover out first,
It was a time when they were doing that. It was a radio gimmick. They would put out these covers. A lot of people were having success doing that. And so that's why it was done. It was a gimmick. And it was one of many compromises we made in between the fall of '85, right after the Cats show, to 1987 or so, a series of bad moves. And it wasn't just us. It was a strange thing. Everybody in the band, everybody around the band, everybody involved in the band all made mistakes across the board. I don't think we really did anything right in those days, looking back on it. I'm not being a martyr about it. I think it's true. I think we just made a lot of mistakes, myself included. So, that was just the way it was. And the results are, what they are. The second single, Golden Ball and Chain, got a little bit of action, but we'd lost the momentum. EMI had been folded into Capitol. The A&R man had been fired.
So you're just out there by yourselves with a new record.
Out there by themselves with a new record. We didn't even tour Europe on that record because they didn't want us to come over.
Right. Well, that's not a mistake that your band specifically made. That's what every band at a certain point during that era,
they did.
You get put up. And I'm curious as to what the mindset of where you are when you can see that happening. When you guys, after making your best record, you're like, this is a classic record. And you got to be thinking, all right, I mean, not to, this is going to probably sell a lot, or we're going to do something with this. And then you get to the point, and maybe it doesn't blow up like you think it should. Like, it's not really a sellout move to make it when the label's breathing down your neck, but is the thought process like, we need to write these songs so we can just keep this going, or we need to write these songs because we put so much into building it to this point. I don't want to just abandon it because they're trying to tell us to do something different. Is it a mix of that, or I just don't want to go get a day job, Probably a little bit of all that, but you put so much work into it up to that point that you don't want to just go, well, it's not really sounding like we should. I'm fine at this level. Screw the record label when they're still going, you do this, one hit single, boom, you're back, baby. You're recording, the thing that we've all heard at some point or another that's probably nonsense.
Right. Well, I think you're all of the above hit. I don't know that I could say it better than you just said it, but that's all true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a weird thing when
is.
art meets commerce.
It is.
But it's better, and people think that it's kind of jive to go make money playing music. It's like, you got to make a living.
You have to make a living.
Do what you
Right.
do love.
Right.
You go do that. That's a no-brainer. Even if
It's-
it's only for 2 hours a night,
Right.
and you got to suffer the other 23
Absolutely.
or 22.
It's an interesting realization, and here we're at the Exit In, of course. My first realization of what you just said was we did our first show at Exit In was releasing the first version of Fervor. And Jack promoted the show by himself. And he had a little budget up, and, he'd figured out how many tickets we were going to sell, and, it was a big event. We were releasing Fervor, and, I think it sold out in advance, actually. It was our first big sellout of a room on the level of Exit In. But Jack, I just saw the budget. I don't know how, this much for the doorman, this much for the sound person, this one for this for that, and he had a room cleaning bill expense. And I was like, wow, Jack, I'm like really broke, and I don't mind cleaning up the room after the show, to get that $50, because I'm probably not going to make any money on the show, right? So I'll do the $50. I'll take the $50. I'll clean the room. I can do that. So, we had this sold-out show, this career show of Jason and the Nashville Scorchers, releasing Fervor, first sold-out room in a real place, Exit In. And, went home, slept, 4 or 5 hours, and came back and cleaned up the Exit In afterwards. And, I was like, whoa, so this is... Wow, rock and roll is an illusion. It's all smoke and mirrors.
I think we've all done that.
Yeah,
Played a great
absolutely.
show out of town. You drive like 10 hours back from Pittsburgh, and you wake up the next day, and you're like, well, back to work at the warehouse.
There you go.
Here
Back
we
to
go.
work
Rockstar
at the
last
warehouse.
night.
That's right.
Back down to sweeping floors today.
Jack had, I think, some little party for some radio people or something, and he had brought in barbecue. And so the next day, the barbecue was sitting in the dressing room, but it had been on a little ice chest thing. So, there it was. That was, for the next 3 months, I had barbecue pizza, barbecue omelets, barbecue with baked potatoes, barbecue with green beans. Every meal was barbecue with something, thanks to that sold-out show at the Exit In. So that was my payoff for my first real sold-out show, as a professional musician.
Yeah, those were the days when you'd have somebody working at a label or a publishing company. They go, hey, we got a #1 party going on today at 3:30 for somebody. You come down, and you're like eating all the food. Come on down,
Right.
free food, free beer. You
The
can come down.
#1 party.
You
Yes,
remember those
sir.
things.
Oh, yeah.
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 Did you ever give yourself any time to think back on like what you guys had accomplished up to that
At that
point? It was
point,
just
no.
straight on.
Because I don't think we were thought of in those days that way.
Maybe it took a little longer.
Yeah. Most people who knew the band were sorry, like, wow, the band didn't get its just
Yeah, it's a bummer.
reward. They were bummed out about it. And nobody in the business was really thinking that this was just, the word pioneering was never used in 91, 92, 93. That just wasn't happening. So, I had looked at the Scorchers as a, creative success and a commercial failure, like everybody else, pretty
Sure.
much in the business and in the fan world. Then the story. Then Jeff, and he tells it better than I do. Then Jeff decided to try to put the band back together, and then we had another run, a good run in the '90s, a pretty good run,
Yeah.
a run that most bands would envy. In that time, it wasn't like we were in the '80s, but we did 4 records and toured a lot and made some money. First time we ever made money was in the '90s. We never made money in the '80s, and we made some money. Had some fun. The guys had sobered up and had a pretty good time. Really.
Sounds
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's all right, yeah.
We were pretty happy.
But that whole critical versus commercial, I mean, there's a lot of you guys are right in there, but, there's Big Star, there's the Replacements,
The
there's
Ramones.
all these bands that didn't sell a ton of records, but,
Right.
you're going down in the pantheon of
Velvet Underground.
Velvet
the
Underground.
First
There's the
record.
biggest one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Best example, I should say.
yeah, exactly. And I mean,
Right.
it's mind blowing to me that, four knuckleheads from around here that I knew ended up over there. You're on the wall at the exit in. You had a Country Music Hall of Fame exhibit, Lifetime Achievement Award at Americana, whatever that thing is. Apparently you're the godfather of Americana. So it's your fault, basically, the hats and the beards in East Nashville.
Does that weigh on you at all?
We'll
You
hold
feel
that against you.
responsible for that?
The Americana tag, someone did say that in Mojo
Yeah.
magazine.
Yeah.
But I would never claim it. And I'm not being modest. I would never make that claim. No. I would never make that claim.
Well, I can see why somebody would say it, but I don't. It's funny
No,
because
no.
I don't consider the Scorchers of that.
Right.
That's a rock and roll band.
Exactly. That number
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
First reason.
I've never seen an Americana act live that looks like that.
No,
so
no.
it's-
That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
No. Maybe, my
But
solo
lyric-
stuff leans that way.
Yeah, but
But-
even lyrically, what you were doing back then, and you had, country songs that you guys did your way. They weren't all completely ripping, so I could see where somebody would tag you guys with that.
Yeah, I'm blessed that we're blessed that they did do that they do say that about us. And, a lot of folks were really kind over the years talking about the band as that. I think we, in retrospect, made a bigger impact than we knew at the time. I think that is the truth.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, big time.
When you think of just the Nashville bands that came behind you, like
Right.
Walk the West, the Georgia Satellites, all those kind of bands that sort of had that not southern rock, but
Right.
a bit of twang to them. I mean, you guys were the ones that
Yeah.
kicked that door down. Hey,
I always, it always surprises me when I'm out there working and someone that I wouldn't expect, will say that about what we did. And, it's a cool moment. It's one of those moments where things become worth it. When someone, for example, I was doing a tour in Holland and solo and Farmer Jason dates. And I ran into Jason Isbell, at a festival. I didn't think he'd know who the heck or care, and, he just said, yeah, I saw you guys way back then and always been a fan and good luck and anything I can do for you.
I was about to say, I'd be upset if he didn't know who you guys were.
Yeah,
But anyway,
absolutely.
It was
Which is funny watching you play your solo shows with an acoustic. You may stand there for a second, but after about 30 seconds, it's like there might as well be a band behind you.
Yeah,
That's-
I've
Gotta
seen
be
you
some motion.
Seen
There has
you
to
at
be
the
some
5 spot or something, and
Thank you.
all of a sudden the leg starts going. And
Which I love because I can't stand to watch a guy sit up on a stool, play acoustic guitar, and sing me songs. I'd rather sit at home and listen to that.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
I'm going out to see something, I want to see something.
Yeah.
And it's so rare nowadays. I mean, we got spoiled with you guys and a lot of the bands in the 80s and 90s. You had to put on a show when you went out and played at, or you had to do like Michael Stipe and just kind of stand there and bring drama to it. But you had to have something going on.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of, sound like an old man now, but I feel really bad for like 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds that never.
I don't know what they're doing.
They don't go to clubs and like get around their, the community and just the rock shows where you're screaming and you're sweating and you're going to go out and try and make out with this girl afterwards. They're missing out on all that stuff,
Yeah.
I feel bad. I feel like it's the first generation.
I hope
that-
we don't lose it.
Yeah, well, I feel like we're the
Yeah.
first parents' generation that's not really scared of the younger. They don't frighten me. They confuse me.
Yeah,
They don't really frighten me. You know?
confused.
I got to remember that quote. Those young people, they don't frighten me, but they confuse me.
Because all the ones up, it's like, oh my God, the hippies, they're going crazy. Oh my God, the punks. And now it's like, oh God, the millennials, they're on their phones and still live with their parents. Okay. Well, I don't understand it, but it doesn't quite scare. I love, Anyway.
That's-
doesn't have the same kind of some
great.
kind of fear. They're not out drinking
wanna
in
be-
the woods
yeah.
and riding
I
skateboards.
want to walk around a group of teenagers and go, I'm getting away from these. They look
Yeah.
nuts. I'm getting out of there. But yeah, we're missing out on that.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Warner was talking about turning that switch off, You know, we touched on it a little bit earlier. I was just curious, again, you had said that you don't really recognize yourself. What do you think makes that transformation happen? It's got to be, personally, I think it's got to be the music, because you're not a heavy drinker or drug user or anything like that. And I can only find the one common denominator is once you hear that guitar and drums kick in, it must come over you in some sort of, or come out from you or come into you. I don't know if you're receiving or you're putting out, you know, how that transformation takes place.
I don't know that anybody's ever asked me that in 40 years.
Oh my God.
No, really, I don't know. I mean, I've been taught that people talk about the switch and the thing, but not as eloquently as you just said. I don't know that I could say it better than that. I do love performance. I love the whole art of performance. And I know some really good musicians who don't love the art of performance. They're excellent players, but they don't like being in front of people playing. But to me, the first time, as I said, my English class at in Buda, Illinois, I was like, this is it, man. I love it. I'm in. I'm in. So I think it's a step on that stage. I think also now it's habit as well. It's so honed in me now that, when I put on the clothes especially, there's something that a change happens that I feel, and I get out of the street clothes and I put on the Farmer Jason coveralls, or I put on the fringe shirt to go onto the Scorchers, or a suit like this for Jason solo. That's when the transformation happens.
Maybe you start pacing around a little bit after you get them on. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Right. Right. It used to be a rather annoying habit I had, is that people didn't really like to be around me before shows, because I was really pretty intense about stuff and really kind of sort of a prima donna rock star about things, back in the day, And every show back in the 80s, I will honestly say that every show, I went for it to try to get that high that live performance can bring. So I went for it every show. I didn't often make it. To my credit, I went for it every time. To my detriment, if it didn't reach that point, I was bummed about it. So here's a fan who drove a long ways and paid a lot of money, and come up afterwards, I just love that show. That was the greatest, and I'm like, I don't know, man. That was like, I don't think it was that good, And it would break their heart, You'd see it really affect them. So I think that around the 90s, I started into the point of like, okay, just because I may not think this is the greatest show I've ever did, someone still may really enjoy that, so that's what it is.
But speaking of that high, it also, when you get in a band like the Scorchers and you get that, when you start playing, if you have if you find yourself playing in a less than desirable band or situation, it makes it doubly worse when you're having a bad time playing. I think we've all been there.
Through that.
Where it's just like, what? You're sitting there going, I made a conscious decision to be here, right now, to do this. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? So, but once you get into that zone, or whatever we want to call it, that's why I haven't been able to chew my leg out of the trap at this point. That's what keeps you from walking away from it, I guess.
That's it.
And I would assume you're going to be playing until you can't.
Until I can, and as long as people care.
Yeah.
There may be a point where just people don't care.
Well, there may be, but at that point, I could still see you or any of my friends with their home recording setup and just recording songs and doing something just to get it out,
Yeah, that's been happening. I think this pandemic has taught a lot of us that. I've figured out some ways to create and to share it with people. It may not make any money, but I still enjoy doing it.
Well, part of the fun is when you create, and as soon as it's done, before you start the sharing, just like, I just made something out of completely nothing. That feels good. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
Exactly.
The next,
And there's no pressure.
No pressure at all.
They're not buying it. So,
exactly.
They can either, play it on their YouTube or whatever or not,
Exactly.
No problem. No one loses any money.
Yep.
But we talked about it earlier that, that I'm a rock and roller and I'm not a pansy, I can stand up on any stage and do it.
Yeah.
But, I believe, and I believe that you can be a rock and roller and still believe in God.
Oh, absolutely.
Still be a Christian.
And not be a complete asshole.
And not be a complete jerk and not be a condescending.
It can't be easy.
It is. It's very easy. It's not hard at all. I love doing it. Yeah, it's one of the foundations of my life. So, yeah, I love doing it. You don't have to be a decadent jerk to be a rock and roller. I'm proud of that. I'm not the only one. There's plenty.
Yeah. Sure.
But, you know.
I'm glad you still hang out with us, though. You know.
You heathens. Yeah. I'll ask for God's forgiveness when this is over. You know.
That's a good spot to end on right there.
Absolutely.
Right there.
Man, thank you so much for coming down
Fellas,
and talking.
this was the best, this is the best. I enjoyed this. It was the best.
It's
Thank you.
so cool.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you're here on the wall at the exit end. It's like full circle. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Thank you.
Jay.
Thank you.
We should mention new record. Still doing barnstorming with Jason. Like monthly.
I do Barnstorming with Jason Ringenberg monthly. It's free. Anybody can just get it. YouTube or the Jason Facebook page. I'm also working on a new record called Rhinestoned. This is an exclusive. First time I've mentioned this in the press.
All right.
It's called Rhinestoned.
To the press.
And
That's us.
that's you guys. Yeah, that's right. So that's coming out in March, early March. We'll be doing a crowdfunding project for that in September.
Got the songs written already?
Getting the songs written and done. Did it here in Nashville with George Bradfute.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he did it. Big shout out to George Bradfute. He's one of the great Nashville musicians
For a long time.
for a long time. And only us cool people know that.
That's true. It's probably the way he likes to keep it, too.
That's how he wants to keep it. I actually have to can I take a picture now, George? And put this, and he'll do that, well.
Right. It's like, okay, all right.
I guess it wouldn't hurt anything. But yeah, he's one of the coolest musicians on the planet.
Big time.
Because he doesn't care about any of the stuff. He just likes playing music or selling guitars or working on something he found at a garage sale.
Good
So thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all are doing an amazing thing here. I think it's a great thing to talk about the rock block, Nashville 80s days and 90s days.
Couldn't start with anybody but you guys,
Absolutely.
for sure.
I'm honored.
So
It's my
now we
honor.
got it. We got it full. We couldn't have the Nashville Scorchers without having Jason.
I know.
Yeah. So now, and we should mention that we tried to get you guys on together, but schedules were conflicting, so there's no issues with anybody being in the same room.
Yeah,
We
that-
would have loved to have all three of you here at the same time, but
The day you guys were doing Warner and Jeff, it
If
was
your
my
girl was
last
going
day
to
for my
college,
kids were
right?
home.
Family day.
Plus, I just felt this internal sort of instinct that something special would happen if it was just Warner and Jeff. I kind of felt that way. That they would, and plus they were here before me, so I felt like they should go first.
Yeah, well,
that's why
something special happened then, but it also did today because
That
this
was
has been
my-
equally as good.
this is true. This
Yeah.
is true. But I will say that Warner and Jeff's podcast was one of the most interesting and entertaining podcasts I've ever seen.
Well, it was not because of us.
I
No.
never, well, no, I mean,
Yeah.
you guys deserve credit. You gave them the format to really tell their stories because people hadn't told and asked them, and they hadn't told their pre-Scorcher stories very much.
Yeah, and Jeff hadn't told many stories at all,
Really.
even during the Scorchers.
Even during the
era.
Scorchers. So that was another credit that I felt very good about. That, I mean, me and Warner gets a lot of credit. We get more than we deserve, I think, sometimes. But
Well,
Jeff,
it's deserved, but
oh, absolutely.
Jeff got real credit on that podcast, and really was smart, and he remembered stuff that I didn't think he would remember, or that anyone would remember, stuff I didn't remember. And that's how it should be. Warner and Jeff should have started this program. The Rock Block podcast should have started with them because they were there at Frankenstein's. They were there in 1977 and 76 playing in little high school bands, at the high school events. They were here.
it's the thing about those two. They may be crazy, but they were no dummies.
That's it.
That's for sure.
That's it right there.
And they
That is
figured it
right
out
there.
later in life, and here
God
they
bless
are,
that.
still banging away.
God bless you for giving them the format.
Yeah,
to
I'm glad
show
you.
that.
Hey, maybe sooner or later you guys can all three get together. I don't
That'd be
just
nice.
throw it out
Yeah,
there,
just
but
throwing
anyway.
it out there.
Yeah, that could happen.
know,
That could
I
happen.
mean,
You betcha.
You're all still here, so
That's right.
why not?
That's right.
All right, we'll end on that one.
That's right.
Excellent.